Wrestling with wrestling's past and present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
See, JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Definitely not his, the barn burner that we've cast the entire rally thing was, but, we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends soon.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
Hager kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put the Zelina Vega on a pole match for that to be.
It is in the mail, my good sir. Oh, it wasn't. Paul.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely.
And then you can listen to us too. We're off to a rough start.
This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Mongo.
And today's topic is Starrcade 1999, obviously from WCW. This was an interesting pay-per-view, to say the least.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, you can tell this is when they've already hit their peak and they're sliding down the mountain. Unfortunately, this was the first nail in the coffin of WCW, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the Vince Russo era. Eric Bischoff is not with the company at this point.
Bro.
So things are, you can definitely see Vince Russo's influence here on this pay-per-view.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, without, spoiling what we're going to talk about later, just the fact that there was a blank on a pole match, you instantly knew, Vince Russo has his hands on this, because that bro loves to put anything on a pole. I mean, there was that Judy Bagwell on a pole match, which I feel like is super infamous. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't put his own career on a pole at one point in time, just because everything was on a pole. Like, come on, bro, get a different shtick.
Yep. There's actually quite a bit of matches. I think there's 12 total matches to go through on this card. 13, actually. So, you had a decent amount of matches here, but sometimes more isn't always great.
No, not at all.
So let's get right into it. We open up the show with a tag team match. It's the Mamalukes, which is Big Vito and Johnny the Bull, with Tony Marinara getting a win over Disco Inferno and Lash LaRue in just under 10 minutes here. Yeah.
Surprisingly, it wasn't terrible, but I mean, the performers, who do you get behind? You get behind the FBI or Mamalukes or whatever they're calling themselves in this match. And then you have Disco Inferno. I mean, Fandango Light. I never really got the hype for Disco Inferno. Funny story about Disco. On the first Jericho cruise, he was invited. Didn't bring his passport, didn't bring his birth certificate. So when they got off in the Bahamas, he, let's just say, couldn't get back on the boat. So he had to fly himself home. And on Jericho's podcast was basically talking about how the entire boat was chanting F Disco the entire ship because he got himself kicked off a cruise ship. So that just shows you how his career has come full circle. He went from this match to not knowing you need a birth certificate to go to another country.
That's a cool story. Yeah, this match was just kind of there for me. I don't think it was a great way to open up the show. I kind of did like the finish a little bit where Disco Inferno goes to hit the last dance on one of the Mamalukes, but he accidentally hits Lash LaRue instead because he's not looking behind him.
Yeah.
And the last dance is basically a stunner. And so I thought the finish was all right, but the match itself, I wasn't really too impressed with it.
Yeah, like you said, it was definitely filler. Unfortunately, we're going to see this. A lot of the card was filler. The last dance segment, I definitely popped a little bit for that because I thought it was cool because I honestly forgot that he did the Stone Cold Stunner or the Stunner or whatever you want to call it as the last dance. He does it surprisingly well. And like you said, when he hit it on Lash LaRue, you're like, oh, okay. So there was some good storytelling to the match, but overall, it was just kind of a meh match.
Yeah. Next up is a singles match for the Cruiserweight Championship. You have Medusa getting a win over Evan Courageous in about 3.5 minutes here. Their storyline here was Medusa and Evan Courageous had just broken up. He's with the new girl Spice now, who's one of the Nitro girls. And there's a little bit of a swerve in this match where Spice attacks Evan Courageous, towards the end of the match and allows Medusa to get the win. Again, this match type of storyline doesn't age well today. We've talked about these intergender matches before in the last couple of shows. And this match was really sloppy.
No, it definitely was. You could see that they just didn't have chemistry together in the ring. And I feel like it really devalued the Cruiserweight Championship, not because it was Medusa, not because it was Evan Courageous, but I mean, WCW had one of the best Cruiserweight divisions. I mean, that's pretty much a fact. Everyone will agree with that, and then to relegate a Cruiserweight Championship to a love triangle is just kind of awkward and very not fitting. Like you said, doesn't age well. Medusa obviously is a great female performer. Evan Courageous, spelled with a K, by the way, everyone, can't spell it the right way. Not so much. And you could tell in the match, he was very sloppy in the match. And I really think Medusa had to carry more of the match than Evan Courageous. And I think that's why it's kind of a quick match. It was only something like 3 minutes.
Yeah, like 3.5 minutes. Yeah.
But yeah, very sloppy. Just, I don't know. Medusa went over, I guess it told the story, but it should just been like a non-title match. I mean, I don't understand the point of putting the strap on Medusa, especially since the Cruiserweight Championship essentially became a throwaway prop at this point.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree there. Yeah, it was not a really well executed match and story whatsoever.
No.
We have another title match in our next match. It's for the Hardcore Championship. It's a hardcore match. Norman Smiley is your champion, and he's going to get a win over Ming in about 4.5 minutes here. Their whole storyline here is that Norman is afraid of Ming. There was a funny interview with Mean Gene Okerlund before the match where he's like, I almost spoiled my pants. Mean Gene looks like, oh, you did.
I love Norman Smiley. I know he's funny. He's great. I've always liked his character. I loved on WCW. He's my favorite. He reminds me a lot. I think this is where R-Truth is getting his inspiration for his current run. Mm-hmm. It reminds me very much of R-Truth 24/7 title run, where it's just silly, but it's fun. I actually really enjoyed this match. I like hardcore, but I like the comedy aspect of it. Norman Smiley is hilarious. Coming out in the football outfit, wearing Champ Bailey's Washington football team, to be politically correct, jersey, wearing the helmet, the shopping cart from Home Depot, essentially full of props.
Yeah.
Like you said, the funny interview when he's paranoid about the producer counting him down.
Yep.
It was fun. I didn't really remember Meng too much, but he played a really good, intimidating opponent, and Norman Smiley they had fun with it, and I thought it was a good match. Some interference in there.
Yeah, it was definitely entertaining. It obviously wasn't a technical match by any means. There's some interference by Fit Finley and Brian Knobbs. They attacked Ming, and that allowed Norman Smiley to get the win. It was kind of cool how they did it because he was kind of nervous to do the pin. He just put one hand on him. So yeah, this one had some story to it, and it was definitely the most entertaining match of the 3 so far in the show.
No, I agree. I think this one was like, okay, so maybe the show will pick up a little steam. I was wrong on that one, but it's still a good match. Like you said, not technical, but it was just fun. And I've always liked Norman Smiley, and I feel like if the listeners don't really know much about him, YouTube him, because not only is he great at comedy, he was great at pretty much what he did. I think that's why he's such a respected trainer and veteran now, because he's got a good brain for the business, and he's very athletic. He looks very deceiving. Like R-Truth, they don't look like they can perform, but R-Truth is almost like a 20+ year veteran, and he can do it. Or Road Dogg, who wasn't the best, but they were good on the mic. They were good in storytelling, so they translate into good trainers, or as they call them, producers in WWE.
I agree. Next up is another match that does not age well today. We're both shaking our head on this one. It's an 8-man tag team match. You have the Revolution, which is Shane Douglas, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, and Asia getting a win over Jim Duggan, and the Varsity Club, which is Kevin Sullivan, Mike Rotunda, and Rick Steiner. Honestly, I did not really remember the Revolution at all, but they're like an anti-American group. Kind of like the Un-Americans that WWE did. And the stipulation here, if Hacksaw Jim Duggan lost, he would have to go on Nitro and denounce his American citizenship. he did lose. They played it up throughout the whole match on commentary that he was refusing to tag in his partners, so his partners turned on him, beat him up. Asia hits a low blow, and Shane Douglas, who's on commentary throughout the whole match, runs in and does the pinfall. So the whole match just didn't really make sense. You have Shane Douglas, who's a participant, doing commentary, and it just nothing good about this one.
This was the first Vince Russo like throw something on the wall and see what sticks match.
Yeah,
because I'm pretty sure the other stipulation was if Jim Duggan won, they had to be janitors for a month. Like what?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, and he was legitimately wearing like a custodial outfit. No disrespect to obviously custodians out there, but he was doing the cliche custodial duties. And I think the pre-match promo, he was cleaning a toilet. Like that describes this match perfectly. He was cleaning a toilet. That's what this match really was. I mean, you have Perry Saturn, who at the time was a pretty good submission wrestler in WCW. Dean Malenko, who the man of 1,000 holds, but no personality. And then Shane Douglas, Sugar Shane Douglas. So you had some pretty talented wrestlers in the ring, and then Hall of Famer Jim Duggan. I don't know. They could have come up with such a better storyline. It didn't make any sense, like you said. And then to bring back Kevin Sullivan and Mike Rotunda to have them stand there and just look pretty. I don't get the booking at all. I didn't get the storyline at all. That match, it took all my strength not to fast forward this match. Let's be honest. I mean, if I could give a negative star, it'd be this match.
Yeah. There's not much more to say than just don't watch this one. Next up is a singles match. You have Vampiro and Dr. Death Steve Williams. The stipulation here is if Vampiro wins, he gets 5 minutes alone with Oklahoma. Oklahoma is Ed Ferrara just parroting Jim Ross.
Awful. I remembered Oklahoma. I remembered watching it on Nitro. Basically, I know they were trying to be funny, making fun of Jarrett, but I mean, they were making fun of his Bell's palsy. Like, that's just, even then, I didn't think that was okay. I mean, this is someone's medical condition because Jarrett lost his mom and it triggered his Bell palsy, and they wanted to make fun of him. And they brought in Dr. Death after he was released from WWF after the disastrous Brawl for All. And because everyone knew that JR brought in Dr. Death, they were like, oh, let's make Oklahoma and let's have Steve Williams be his boy, kind of like they did in WWF. And it's a petty storyline. I'm not a fan of Oklahoma. I feel like Ed Ferrara could have done so much more, and I don't get the humor, I guess, and I didn't then. Just it's too blatantly obvious of a ripoff and too blatantly obvious that they're making fun of it. It's not subtle, so it's not really enjoyable. Maybe as a one-off it would have been funny, but yeah. And then Vampiro, I like Vampiro, but have the mighty have fallen in this match.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, the whole Oklahoma thing was very distasteful. And it didn't make much sense too, because Vampiro wins, and so he gets the 5 minutes of Oklahoma, but Oklahoma really controls Vampiro for most of for the early half of it. He does like a DDT and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's commentating throughout his own match, which was really weird.
Yeah. So it just didn't make much sense to me. And like you said, yeah, I remember the Oklahoma storyline too, and you just knew that something wasn't right about it back then, and it just doesn't age well today at all.
And I feel bad because Vampiro was a good worker. And I feel like he was definitely that cool demonic character kind of before they really got big. And the Misfits were kind of a cool faction then. I think that was their way of doing like the oddities. Essentially, that was their way. And it's funny too because they even had the band's logo of the Misfits. I don't know much about punk music, but I do know that's their logo. I've seen it on people's cars. So it was an interesting group. I just feel like it wasn't matched up in the right storyline. And I think that was their problem with the tail end of their time is they threw together too many storylines. And as we can see this pay-per-view is progressing into, it was just so many thrown together storylines that just didn't make sense, didn't really have payoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for Starrcade. This is their flagship show.
Yeah. And you would think they would go on to bang too. It's the last show of the century, before the 2000s hit, and it's a dud.
Yep.
Next up is a 6-man tag match. You have Creative Control which is Gerald and Patrick, along with Kurt Hennig with Shane, who's Virgil or Vincent, or what's his name in AEW, Soulman Jones.
Oh, yes.
So whatever you want to call him. Getting a win over Harlem Heat, Booker T, Stevie Ray with Midnight. God, I don't know.
The whole Undertaker shtick where she just appears in the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they were using this as a way to break up Harlem Heat because I think they were trying to get Booker T on a singles run.
Mm-hmm.
It was just weird. Poor Mr. Perfect. Sorry, he's always going to be Mr. Perfect to me. It was a bad match overall. Very sloppy, and I feel bad because I know Booker T, I know Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat. They can put on a better match than that, and you could tell their hands were tied in this match. And I think them knowing that their tag team run was coming to an end, also putting over Creative Control, like, I mean, that's got to be exciting. I think just kind of led to this match being sloppy. And then Midnight, just not really, we don't really know anything about Midnight at this point. We know a little bit about her. It didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it was very sloppy, and I feel bad. And Virgil being in there, like, it doesn't make sense. It was just so much thrown together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add. It was just there, and it just made no sense. But it's, it's kind of the theme of Stargate 99 so far.
Which it really surprised me, because when we were talking about watching this, I was a little excited because I was like, okay, well, Stargate 97 was probably one of their best Stargates in a long time. Stargate 98, the streak ended with Goldberg, so it was a little controversial, but it was still a solid show. And I didn't really remember Stargate 99, and now I kind of remember why. I was thinking, this is their WrestleMania, this is their big show, this is their blow off, their major storylines finally come to a head, and then you watch this, you're like, this was just a bad episode of Nitro. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is a bunkhouse brawl match between Jeff Jarrett and Dustin Rhodes. Jeff Jarrett is going to hit a guitar shot here for the win in 11 minutes to get the win over Dustin Rhodes. This match wasn't horrible compared to what we've seen. Right. But it was your typical hardcore match. I didn't find too much special about it. I think you probably had one of your better, your two better workers in this on the card so far with Jeff Jarrett and Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes was doing the American Nightmare gimmick. He just came back as 7, which that is actually one of my favorite promos of all time. If you ever watched his 7 promo, it's really awesome. Just, type in Dustin Rhodes 7 debut. It'll come up for you. That's an awesome promo. So
I loved it. I love that they incorporated basically his shoot into this storyline.
Yeah.
He had just left WWF. He was sick of his Goldust gimmick, coming in WCW, and then saddled with this god awful 7 gimmick. And again, you got to watch the promo, like Tim said, because it's a great promo. And then he basically just comes out there and gives the middle finger to Creative, which is great. Like, I'm not doing this. And I agree. I thought that kind of helps get his character a little bit more over, because he's like, look, I'm not going to be saddled with another terrible idea. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was kind of cool because, as we know, AEW just did a bunkhouse brawl match a few weeks ago with Dustin Rhodes. I had known that his father created it, but it's kind of cool that we watched this. I'm like, oh, hey, look, there's another bunkhouse brawl. So it's kind of cool to see that gimmick again, brought into the modern light, brought into this pay-per-view. Again, like I said, it didn't seem like anything different than a typical hardcore match. But I think it was their way of furthering the storyline, because Jeff Jarrett was insulting Dusty Rhodes. Mm-hmm. And this way it's his match, and Jeff Jarrett won his match. So the storytelling, at least in this one, made sense. And this match actually was enjoyable. Honestly, probably one of the best matches on the card.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And first of many appearances from Jeff Jarrett tonight.
Yes. Next up is what we talked about, the on a pole match. This time it's a crowbar on a pole match between DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and David Flair. Diamond Dallas Page will get the win after a diamond cutter in just under 4 minutes. David Flair had a lot of offense in this match. DDP kind of, did a diamond cutter out of nowhere. again, it was just kind of there for me. I kind of felt bad for DDP being relegated to this type of a match.
Right.
I think he's a little bit better than that. Well, he is better than that. Luckily, they kept it short, so it wasn't too long. But yeah, just another one of these underwhelming Starrcade matches.
And I think, DDP was trying to help David Flair get over, try to help David Flair get the rub, essentially, but it just didn't really come off that well because David Flair was very green in this match, and you could tell. And even the promo setting up him being a stalker, which I wonder if that's where WWF got their eventual idea to bring DDP. He stalked his wife, and then later on, DDP's gonna go on to stalk the Undertaker's wife years later, so it's kind of full circle there. But I didn't really understand, and they didn't really explain what the Golden Crowbar was about at the beginning. Before the match started, he randomly got this Golden Crowbar that I don't know, was it from Francine? So another one of those storytelling moments that they kind of put in there and then just never delivered on. And then, like you said, thankfully it was short. I think the thing I popped most for is when he did the diamond cutter off the turnbuckle, just because I always like when they do moves off turnbuckle like that. And diamond cutter, RKO, cutter, whatever you want to call it, it's still one of my favorite moves to execute because it's so easily done, but it just looks so great. And like you said, I wish DDP could have got a little bit better of a match on Starrcade versus this.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is a singles match between Sting, who's accompanied by Elizabeth here. He's going to get a win over the total package Lex Luger by disqualification. Before the match, Elizabeth is carrying a can of mace, and Sting says, nope, throw that one away. Here's this one. This is the super high stuff, high octane stuff. So Elizabeth takes it. And in the match, Elizabeth is going to swerve. Sting goes to attack him and sprays him with that. Turns out to be silly string, so Sting was in on the swerve. And then later on, she just whacks him with a bat, and that causes a disqualification. So the match itself, wasn't great. There's a whole lot of gaga there with Elizabeth and the silly string and the bat and everything. It's a lot of shenanigans going on there. So not really much of a match.
It seemed more like a promo than a match.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like, these two are going to be fighting. And another stipulation from Russo that just doesn't make sense. Like, she gets her freedom to not be Lex Luger's slave if she wins. So then the storytelling makes sense. So does she have like that syndrome? I can't think of the name of it right now, where you're like obsessed with your stalker or obsessed with your captor. Like, she attacks Sting, so she wants her freedom according to the storyline, but then she's going to attack the man that's trying to save her. Like, I don't get their logic in this match. And another one, Sting, goes from that 97 Starrcade match to this. Like, I just can't believe in 2 years they went from having him on top of the world to getting hit with silly string and a baseball bat and a wrestling bat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just...
And I like Lex Luger, and I thought he was always, I don't think he was always going to be a main eventer, but I think he was a good wrestler. He just had a bad turn of events in his career, and I think that's what really derailed his career. Another one, like a bad storyline. He could have been fighting the Kevin Nashes and the Sid Viciouses, and he could have been fighting some of the opponents more his size, and they could have been more enjoyable. Like, he had a good match with a Giant years before. I don't understand how they just can't recapture some of that magic. It's like they didn't know what they had, and I think that's what the problem with this pay-per-view is. They didn't really know what they had in the roster, so they just kind of threw people together.
Yeah. Next up is a powerbomb match between Kevin Nash and Sid Vicious. So the object here is you have to win by executing the powerbomb. And then, right into the match, Kevin Nash goes for a pinfall after a side slam. So, but this is our second appearance by Jeff Jarrett. He comes out, hits the guitar shot on Sid Vicious. Kevin Nash attempts to do a powerbomb, but he can't. His back gives out. The referee has been knocked out before this. He convinces the referee that he hit the powerbomb. The referee buys it. And that's your win. Kevin Nash wins the match. Again, a whole lot of shenanigans going on, not a whole lot of real great wrestling. And it just, it wasn't good.
I don't get it. I mean, you had two former world champions in this match that both can go, that both can wrestle, and you're gonna put a dumb stipulation like the first one to hit a powerbomb wins. That makes no sense. I know that's both their finishers, that's both the gimmick, but even then, when I was a kid, I remember like looking back at this, I kind of remembered the match. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like the first person to hit the finisher wins, and then to almost like you said, to blatantly ignore it right in the beginning with a side slam, and then him telling the referee, "Oh yeah, I totally hit a power bomb," and then the referee's like, "Sure, the match is over." You almost feel insulted as a fan. You're like, well, "Okay, I get wrestling's a work. I get the predetermined finishes, but you can't write a better finish than him just going like, oh yeah, I totally hit a power bomb. We're good." Like this match was just straight up insulting. That's the best way I can say. So another match just totally skip.
Oh man. Next up is a ladder match for the U.S. heavyweight title. So a little bit of context in this one. It was supposed to be Chris Benoit and Scott Hall for the title. Scott Hall was unable to perform. So earlier in the night, they just awarded Benoit the title. He comes out, cuts a promo saying he doesn't want to just be given the title. He wants to earn it. So he issues an open challenge. So it's answered by Jeff Jarrett in a ladder match. I actually did not hate this match. I thought this match was okay. It was probably my favorite match on the card. It was interesting to me because I don't remember a whole lot of ladder matches being done in WCW.
I don't
They're done quite a bit, obviously, in WWE, but in WCW, I don't really remember a whole lot of ladder matches. So that was kind of an interesting note. So I actually kind of enjoyed this one.
No, I did too. I thought Chris Benoit's promo in the beginning was a very good promo. Mm-hmm. And you can tell, and that's one thing I think WCW did better than WWE, WWF, is they let their wrestlers kind of go out there and cut their own promos a little bit. So I think that kind of helped tell this story a little bit. With Chris Benoit, the wrestler, going out there saying, look, I don't deserve this title. I need to earn this title. And then Jeff Jarrett coming out and, first I'm like, because I didn't look at the finishes before and I didn't remember this match as well. I was like, oh, this is the way to give Jeff Jarrett a title. But it was surprisingly a good match. And then the spot of him doing the diving headbutt off the ladder, even back then, that's just such a big spot. It's unfortunate now watching it, knowing that that's probably some of the spots that led to what happened without going into detail. But it was a solid match. And Jeff Jarrett even held up his own. I mean, he wrestled twice in one night. I mean, he wrestled the hardcore match, essentially a hardcore match with Dustin Rhodes and the ladder match with Chris Benoit. So I give a lot of credit to Jeff Jarrett because he wrestled a lot that night. And he did really well. And overall, it was a good match. Like you said, there wasn't a lot of ladder matches. So they put on a show. Probably if you're going to watch one or two matches from the show, this is one of the ones to watch.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. This would be the one that I would pick from the whole show. If you had a, if you wake up one morning and say, oh, I want to watch Starrcade 99 today.
Right. And then you might want to get your head checked out if you think that, because there's obviously something wrong.
Unfortunately, we have one more match to discuss, and that is a no disqualification match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Bret Hart's your champion. He's taking on Goldberg here. Okay, so there's about 150 referees that they go through in this match. Then eventually Roddy Piper comes out. Bret Hart puts Goldberg in the sharpshooter. Roddy Piper immediately just calls for the bell. Obviously, it's a ripoff of the Montreal Screwjob. Throughout the night, Vince Russo, or the powers to be, as they call him, was teasing something big happening at the end of the night, and this is what it was. It's just really not a creative finish. It's a blatant ripoff of WWE, and they just couldn't come up with anything different, I guess. This is also the match that ended Bret Hart's career, with the mule kick to Bret Hart's head caused a concussion. Bret Hart would wrestle a few more matches after this, but ultimately he had to retire because of this match.
It's sad. Going back knowing this was the match that ended his career, it was very hard to watch just because it's kind of a crappy way to go out. I mean, you never want anyone to get hurt regardless of the match, regardless of the program. But both men are just top of their game at this point, and this is the match and the finish we get. They could have put on a decent match. I know Goldberg's not a strong worker when it comes to length of matches, but he could have. Bret Hart brings out the best in everyone, And I feel like if they just actually let this be a clean finish, clean match, they could have had a solid match. And I don't think it was so much Goldberg or Bret Hart's fault that the injury happened. And I don't know if that's what caused the rush finish, but that finish was awful, like you said. I mean, and they didn't even wait for him to even lock in the submission.
No, I know.
It's like he grabbed his ankles and Roddy Piper's like, ring the bell. What? Like, so, I mean, they didn't even add any drama to the finish. So I think that's what really made it kind of wonky, was there was no drama to the finish. It was, he grabbed his ankles, time to ring the bell. What?
Yeah. Yeah, it just awful. What an awful way to end your last pay-per-view of 1999, your last pay-per-view of the century. And it's just, yeah.
They were riding so high, you know, 96 to 98 were probably some of their best years on television and pay-per-view. And they had a chance to really keep that momentum going. I know they were losing the Monday Night Wars at this point. You know, they were losing viewership, but this is not going to keep your viewership. And this is really what started turning people off. Because, I mean, no one's going to pay $50 to watch this. I mean, I'm so glad I don't really remember paying for it. I'm pretty sure this is the one I watched at Roland's house. I think we watched it after the fact, but I wouldn't have paid for this. I would have been so mad if I paid $50 and this is what I got, because it was terrible. I mean, I'd probably give this maybe a 1 out of 10, and that's because one match was halfway decent.
Yeah, I was gonna be a little bit more generous to give it a 2, but yeah, I mean, this was a pretty bad pay-per-view. Obviously, the worst WCW pay-per-view that we've covered. I mean, probably the worst pay-per-view we've covered on this show so far. And
I was going to say, I've listened to a lot of the past episodes, and there's been some pretty stinker pay-per-views that have been covered on this program. And this one, I definitely think tops the list of all-time worst. And,
yeah, I would agree.
And you know, it's bad when Eric Bischoff quotes in his book that the absolute worst pay-per-view from opening bell to closing bell that I've ever seen in my life. And he's written some stinkers too. So, you know, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, that is our rundown of Starrcade 1999. Next week, though, we have a little bit of higher hopes for this pay-per-view, I hope. We're going to go back to ECW and cover Holiday Hell 1995. That's main evented by Cactus Jack and Sabu. Looking forward to going back to that show. ECW shows have been really good so far, the ones that we've covered. So I'm looking forward to watching that and dissecting that one for you guys next week.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun. I think there's going to be some good moments in that one. And anything will cleanse our palate after watching this pay-per-view.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what's on tap for next week. In the meantime, we all hope you have a safe holiday season. Merry Christmas to everyone. And we'll be back next Saturday at 5. Until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Mongo.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
I hope you're all having a nice day.